Anyways, I was reading your interview on there. I loved your they asked you like what a business idea is that you would give away, and you essentially were talking about connecting local and regional airports with like what's
Oh
now
yeah,
Hyperloop with Musk or something.
exactly, exactly.
I
It's,
love it.
well, I've done a lot of traveling. At one time, I was traveling like 900,000 miles a year. And,
Whoa.
everybody needs a new airport, but doesn't have the space to build it. And, then security came in to be a major constraint. And, you know, every airport in the world has, flight noise problems. And, people that bought houses after the airport existed still are like, there's an airport here now. It's like, well, it was there when you bought your house. But no, it's just move them out in the middle of the desert and hyperloop into them, and do security like downtown San Diego, and San Diego, Vegas, and LA could all share one airport. But anyway,
No, that's super smart. And now like he's actually drilling the holes under California with have you seen the
exactly.
what's the
Yep.
name of that company? Boring company?
Yep. He
Oh,
actually should have had the Dutch drill the holes for him.
right? They're
No,
really good at that?
the
I
Dutch
don't
are the
know.
best tunnel builders in the world.
Really?
Yeah, they built the channel between England and the mainland Europe, and then Amsterdam. Basically, all the traffic, basically goes under the water.
Wow. I didn't know that. They're really good at building tunnels.
Yeah,
You guys are really good at building technology. I was looking at your customer list. I mean, Amazon, HomeAway, Lidos. I was just out at in San Francisco at RSA, and I don't know what they do, but they had a really big booth. And I'm like, oh man, there's Lidos, and they did a website or they did a project for them.
yeah. It's pronounced Lidos. It's the other half of SAIC. SAIC used to be the largest government contractor that you'd never heard of,
Hmm.
but they split into two companies. Basically, they were bidding against themselves, and it just doesn't work in the federal procurement space. But Lidos is probably the biggest contract they have. They're part of the Defense Initiative for Health, basically putting in EHR systems into all of the um, VAs, and I think they just got the DoD contract as well. Basically, replacing a system that SAIC put in back in the '80s, and they have a large health practice. They're actually a really interesting company. They're the only company I've ever seen build an application fabric and get it to work.
Really?
Yeah. So everybody thinks, the old premise that, 70% of software development's all the same. So we could build a fabric that incorporates the 70. And then depending on the, the data model you inject, or the business model you inject, it can be different things. Lidos has that. They use it for healthcare. They use it for command and control, which is like joint flight operations for NATO. And
Hmm.
they use it for the TSA. The example they gave it me when I saw it is they basically said, okay, we have 2 days until we demo this application fabric. What do you want it to do? I said, Zillow. So they wrote a quick Zillow UI and injected housing data, and they basically had Zillow. And so,
Really?
yeah, it's a pretty cool, impressive piece of technology. But then you peel the stack back and find out it's the commercialization of $100 million DoD.
Yes. So just for the people that are listening, can you give an overview of what your company does other than build amazing things for these amazing companies?
Yeah, so Enola Labs is an architecture and engineering services company. We have two different really branches. One is pure engineering, where we've kind of transitioned to doing JavaScript on AWS for anybody. Mid-market and larger companies. We do a lot of legacy systems migration, which actually comes out of the consulting practice, where I'm one of four people that we call it the Labs group. It's a former labs employees from Fortune 100 companies. So it's what do you do in the Labs group? It's kind of the what we said at HP Labs is what do you guys do? And we say we do that.
Yeah.
Just tremendous opportunities. I focus mostly on manufacturing in my time, but subsequently, I focus a lot on healthcare. I had a health incident in 2014 where I went from, being a triathlete to a quadriplegic in about 7 days. And so in sitting, not being able to move, looking to see, how they interacted with their systems as a systems guy, drove me crazy. So I had to dive into health and see if we could solve any problems in health. And that's what connected us with Leidos, is I helped them with their commercial application fabric and their commercial, kind of over the top play of EHRs.
Excellent. So you do a lot of stuff in the health space then?
I do a lot of stuff in the health space, still do a little bit in the manufacturing space, trying to bring manufacturing back to the US, help some of the companies that are trying to grow in that space. And then we do a lot, just in technology. Our team in general, JavaScript's the backbone of the internet. And so we do, effectively serverless node on the back end in AWS, and either React or Vue on the front end.
Wow. So my brother and stepmom are both physicians. So I grew up around the whole doctors in the medical world.
Yeah. Well, how meaningful use has really killed their productivity. And so, it's the implementation of the EHR, rather than, writing paper notes, they leave their practice and then go home and spend the next 3 hours putting stuff in the EHR. And so
that's exactly what they do.
Yeah, no, I've talked to a lot of physicians, and they're like, it's not enabling us to have better quality outcomes, but it's at least tracking. The biggest problem that happened in that space is, the problems in healthcare are, regulation and mostly around regulation and policy. They put that in, not really realizing it. And if you take a look from a domain perspective, healthcare is the only system where their tracking system, so patient tracking system, is the same thing as their financial system. Most every other, like I come from manufacturing, we have manufacturing systems, which are the core of the tracking of, form, fit, and function for whatever manufacturing process it is. And then you have your ERP systems, which are your finance systems. Obviously, they communicate at certain points, but they're not the same system. And so one of the things that really hurt healthcare when, the government said, okay, everything's got to be electronic, is it spawned a bunch of these big EHR companies, and they tightly coupled finance with tracking, and it's kind of made it obtuse for a lot of doctors, which I think your family would attest to.
Yeah, our dinner conversations often turn into them querying me and asking me, like, what big ideas do you have to fix these problems? I'm like, guys, I don't know. and then we go into the whole, like, they're getting some real interesting stuff. I'd say the most interesting conversation we've had recently is that they're getting bombarded with the insurance companies, like AIs essentially bothering them, saying, hey, if this person's on this medication, are they on diabetes? Why aren't they on this other medication? Like making inferences from the prescriptions that they're on. And they're like, shut up, system. They're like, because of these 8 reasons, that because the systems aren't smart enough, and so now they're just being bombarded by automated suggestions and having to respond to them, and they're getting frustrated over it.
Well, physician frustration and physician fatigue is one of the biggest problems in healthcare. It's only going to get worse. At some point, government willing, we'll go to a central payer model. And in that, the other big thing that's coming up is bundled payments. So 70% of things that go through hospitals could be bundled. We're talking like your routine hip replacements, knee replacements, even like stents and stuff could be done on an outpatient basis. And so a lot of the payments, rather than, I don't know if you've ever had a hospital experience, but you go in and have a surgery, you get like 37 bills of people, it's like, I don't even know what this company did for me, but I'm delinquent in the payment. And so healthcare will move to more of a bundled payment where you pay your PCP, your primary care physician, and then they'll distribute the money. So a lot of physicians are really concerned about that because the specialties will get commoditized. And there's no good way in bundle payments to differentiate between, just a total hip, a standard total hip, and, an infected total hip or something. And, rather than having a guy that just goes through, 10 to 15 hips a day, how are you going to compensate the specialized surgeon that's, doing 12 hours just on one hip? And so,
do you think that Bezos and Buffett and Jamie Dimon, all of them, that they're going to fix healthcare?
Are they going to fix healthcare? Everybody looks at healthcare and says, this is so easy to fix with technology. The problem is it's policy and regulation. And not getting into politics, but if you take a look at the CDC's website, Health and Human Services, their biggest problem right now is the opioid epidemic. Yet policy is getting driven by the pharmaceutical companies, which are making money on opioids. And the government isn't funding research in alternative non-addictive methods that, let's say, California or Colorado might have, a leg up on.
We could talk about medical stuff the whole day. But for I want to get back into the technology stuff. I want to know how you fell in love with technology, like your earliest experiences with technology.
So my earliest experiences, I'm wicked old. And basically, when I was in second grade, I tested into seventh grade, and my father wouldn't let them move. And so, second, third, fourth grade, I got thrown behind a computer. And, at that days, it's, your Apple IIe or your Commodore 64 type of stuff. And, I just kind of fell in love with, programming and, putting computers together. And so that was kind of a major emphasis. My father is an orthodontist, wanted me to go into dentistry or something like that, but was always, super strong in math and science. And so, really enjoyed following a technology career. And then, I effectively got lucky by working hard at different points in my HP career, and was able to rapidly progress in that. The only thing that, I'd say this to every lead engineer, CTO, just a quick side note on, CTOs in Austin. Most CTOs in Austin, because we don't have the big companies, are really lead engineers of startups and, very small companies. And the thing that I always tell them is never stop engineering, because writing documents and sitting in meetings is one thing, but, most of us got into this because we love solving problems. And the best way to solve problems is with code.
Yeah, keeping your problem solving skills sharp, and then leveraging what you're learning in those meeting and architect roles, and building upon the analogies that you have in, problem solving through code. You can kind of mix it all together and really, really get a large sense of experience.
Yeah, no, it's engineering is, I was on the board of our local children's museum here in Austin, really focused on STEM, but, we have to get, more women in engineering, more minorities in engineering, and more people just, there's too many people that say, I can't do the math and science. It's, you were told that you can't do the math and science. Math is not, a difficult construct. It's the world is based on geometry. Life is based on algebra. So we do it. We just, some point when we're little kids, we told ourselves we weren't good at it. And so we never put the emphasis on learning it.
That's a good point. I've seen a lot of people, they mentally shut off and say, I'm not good at it. Why aren't you good at it? Well, I didn't do good at it in school. It's like, well, yeah, I mean, but then again, you are under the age of 15 wanting to go outside and play, and you're being forced to sit in a cold room and memorize things that you don't want to do. Like, it's not that you're not good at it. It's like it was forced down your throat at the wrong time.
Right. And, not coming from me, and it's unfortunate. It's, equalization in the workplace has driven, a reduction in the average IQ or, grade point average of our teachers. And, they're being taught, to standardize tests, and, that, maybe that's what turns off some of the kids. I have a, daughter in kindergarten, and, she's learning to do mathematics, straight across the page. And, I try to stack the things and say, basically if you stack any number and you can add between 1 and 10 and learn to carry the number, you can add any number. And she took that to her teacher, and her teacher came back and said, that's not a good way to do math. It's like, seriously?
Yeah. But it's so interesting because as an adult, you can see the teachers in a different light. But when you're a kid, they're like, God, they're like all powerful teachers, right? But then when you're an adult, you see it and you're like, you understand, they're just people. Like, people aren't perfect, and there's some people are really closed and some people are really open, and there's really great teachers and there's really not great teachers. And then, it's just, life is so interesting with education.
Yeah. And hopefully they don't have, bad experience with teachers. And, I think that's a parent's job to, help supplement, and, giving them experience and giving them fun ways to do math. Like, both my kids could do addition and subtraction in like 2 and 3, because we had a table that we put, these little microbots on, and we had 10 of them. And I said, there's 10 here. If I take 2, how many do we have? And, they're chasing them around the table, and we have 8. And so I'm like, okay, 10 minus 2 is 8. If we put those 2 back, how many would we have? And, just kind of making learning fun and making STEM fun. I saw something, the STEM Foundation that you're part of. And so, I think, STEM is, it's the future of America getting great again.
Right. Isn't that like, I love the books, because we get, people write in and stuff all the time. Oh, I came across this book through some story they have about how they came across it. And, it's just, that's why we put them out there and do that. And that's like a fun project that we work on. Me and my siblings, we work on every year. So yeah, I'm glad you saw the books. I'll send you some books. You said you're in Austin?
I am.
Yeah. When I saw the video and I saw it ended up and it said like wicked cool or into the video on your website, I was like, oh, are they in Boston? And Jake's like, no, they're in Austin. I was
wicked,
like, okay.
Wicked smart. That comes
Wicked
from,
smart, yeah.
You know where that comes from.
Oh yeah.
Oh yeah.
Oh yeah. And
where they park the cars, they dig girls.
Oh, of course. And then you got the green, what are they called? The green, what are the duck cars. Yeah. And then, and one of the other things I was thinking about here when you were talking about engineering is the act of learning to do some engineering, whether it's, mechanical engineering or just programming, whatever it is, when you're forced to learn how to think in terms of systems and repeatable processes and detach from things from a very like emotional, like monkey way, right? And you have to think of them objectively and in your third eye or your mind, right? And it allows you to develop this concept of thinking critically and like away from yourself. And that's what I wish everybody had that capability.
Or just not even the capability, but the opportunity to learn the capability and a fun way to learn it. So that's something that's, phenomenal about what you guys do in STEM, and, make science fun. It's, when I was a kid, we had, what was it? Bill Nye the Science.
Oh, I love Bill Nye. Yeah.
And, I grew up in, kind of BFE, Oregon, and, Oregon has a lot of hydroelectric. And so I got really interested in, electricity. And so,
No, I could tell you're a big, like, Jake, our producer, was telling me, he's like, oh man, you're gonna love this guy. And because I'm really I'm like really, geeky and like to learn and stuff in all aspects of my life other than just the developing of technology. And when I saw your Atom icon, and then I saw that your previous company was Axiom, and then I saw this quote about, one A player outforms a number of B players. I mean, that is literally a quote like I've said on the show before. And when I saw your quote come up, I'm like, yes, like we're gonna be friends.
I call it the Zuckerberg Principle.
Oh yeah.
It's not something he actually said, but he's basically saying, strong engineers do great things. And, I tell people all the time, it's the people that graduated ahead of me in graduate school were from India, but none of them worked for the outsourcing companies. And, I don't care whether it's an outsourced company or a Fortune 100 company or whatever it is, people with a high level of drive, the A players, the ability to do the critical thinking, they just are able to do things a lot faster than, people that, don't have those capabilities. And so,
Oh, significantly. You put them on your team and they start telling you all of the great things they're doing. And it's just like,
Exactly.
yes, keep going, keep going, keep going. And now you're in a spot versus when you work with B or C players, you having to encourage and like, I mean, like you do all that stuff, but it's definitely, you do the stuff that you do as a leader, but it's definitely what's going on with them as an individual too. You hire those top people, and I see that you're doing that. You said that you made a comment earlier that in your labs, they're former lab employees of the top Fortune 100 companies, right? So that's like a trend. I'm really curious. So are your labs something where I can come to you and say, hey, we do this. This is our business. We want you to like help us innovate in this specific area by doing like a lab style project? Or how do you?
We do that all the time, and we
Okay.
involve, a lot of rapid prototyping, a lot of, ideation,
Mhm.
and really where we focus on is execution. One of my other quotes that I love to use is inspiration without execution, actually defined as hallucination.
It's
And
dreaming.
yeah,
Yeah.
it's the guy that thinks that they can do it, but if you can't execute, then execution is really what we thought. The critical thinking, and yeah, no, we do. Austin's kind of an incubator for a little bit of that, and so we do that for some larger companies in a couple of different domains. There's a lot of things, and I won't even get into the entrepreneurship, but that's why working with people in the Bay Area, Cambridge, and big, Atlanta is going to be a huge innovation area because they have, I think that's the largest city with the most Fortune, headquarters of Fortune, X companies. And so you'll see Atlanta start to really come up, and it's something that we don't have in Austin. We have the Googles, we have the Apples, we have the Amazons, but we don't have the headquarters. And without the headquarters, that's why the Bay Area is so it's such a great innovative environment. Is Google goes out to the top 15 engineering, selects their top students, trains them how to be engineers, cross educates them across different parts of the business so that they become better engineers. And then at some point you want to buy a house or you want to have a family and you decide to spin out and take a risk. And those are the grade A players that are starting companies that are kicking butt. It's kind of the WhatsApp example. I mean, WhatsApp was written by 5 guys.
Yeah. And then you like WhatsApp, Instagram, all these, there's a lot of these large companies that are all just less than five team members.
Yeah. And,
Yeah.
then they get bought by Facebook and, what's not good there.
Yeah. So how do you, obviously you've got great people, but how do you groom and pull up and promote leadership within your company?
I think, as technical leaders, one of our responsibilities is I do it within my company, but also external to my company. And so my LinkedIn profile is massive. And basically, I say, if you've got drive and you either are an engineer or want to be an engineer, connect with me. I'll do anything I can help, whether you're just learning, coming out of school, or whether you're an experienced engineer looking to do something in the domain. I believe as a technology leader, it's my job to help cultivate more technology leaders. And specifically how we do it within our company is we cross-train intentionally. And so if you're we used to, Atomic was more of a, native app development company. And the trend really on native apps is the big companies are doing it themselves, and it's no longer the agency model, and the small type of startups are doing it offshore. But onshore, a lot of our iOS and Android programmers, I would require to learn either back-end JavaScript or front-end JavaScript, because it gives them other frameworks and other patterns and other ways to think. So every one of our engineers has to cross train in either another technology or into architecture. And I then even break that apart. You want to do data architecture? Do you want to do solution architecture? It's our job as technology leadership to build and a better class of engineers.
Nice. And then how large is your team currently?
Our team's about 40. We're headquartered in Austin, but we've got remote engineering all throughout the United States. We're US only due to some of our contracts and, just time, being able to jump on a Google Meet or something at the same time. What I found is, rather than, struggling with recruiters in Austin, is just find the best and the brightest and don't care where they are and give them a job from home. And it kind of inhibits us from being able to grow a lot of junior engineers because the remoteness, they need kind of the mentorship. And so when we do have junior engineers doing quality engineering or something like that, we assign them specifically a mentor, and that mentor is responsible for basically grooming them and teaching them, patterns that they may not know, or things that they've studied in, undergrad CS that haven't done a thing with in, the last 5 years. We really try to, kind of open their minds to other things.
And then of that 40, do they structure into subgroups of like teams of 3 to 5 or?
Well, it's basically the Labs consulting group, and then a web engineering group. And the web engineering group does, it depends on the projects. We run projects that have, 12 to 15 people. We have, some projects where, we just do like the React engineering. So that might be 1 to 5 people. And so, and then the other thing that we try to do is we try to, in, traffic, which is essentially staff allocation, is we try to mix the engineers so they don't, they're not always working with the same group of people that have strengths. And so, I'm strong in, writing the Redux core. And so I'll always do the Redux core. It's like, no, I need everybody to learn how to do the Redux core. I need everybody to learn how to do, the HTML and the CSS styling, if you're a front-end engineer.
Well, that's real smart from a business perspective too, because you want your resources to be distributed in the sense that you're not dependent upon the only person that knows how that thing works.
It's the only way we can. And,
right.
I even try to cross-pollinate them. I'm not a big fan of the title full stack, but, if we have front-end engineers that want to learn back-end engineering, great. Start with the database and come back out. Learn some DevOps and, some things like that. So, the more you understand about, the whole picture, the better you can contribute on your individual piece. And, within a company perspective, if I cross-train them, then that gives me flexibility that I don't need, engineer X to do, if we're going to do this project.
Now, do you have project leaders that aren't writing code full time? I mean, they know how to write code. They've have maybe a decade of experience writing code, but they're more leading the team and bridging closer to the business, or?
We run very, very flat. And so all of our engineers, our lead engineers, we train into architecture. And so they do both solution architecture and technical project management, just because the technical project management is really, kind of more managing the board with a senior engineering team than, the kind of what I call OCD babysitting, the PMs of, the golden time when I was growing up.
Yeah.
So to answer your question, everybody except for the .lab consultants code. I can code, but you don't want to pay me to code because I used to be one of the best engineers. I've been an architect for a long, long time. So unless it's data warehousing or Redshift or something fun like that, you don't want me writing the code.
Yeah. Yeah. So the .labs consultants, they're like the higher level thinkers.
Yeah, it's more business. Well, we try to teach everybody to be higher level thinkers, but the .labs guys are just more on, really more Fortune 100 type of, coming in to do solution architecture, coming in to bring their domain experience. Like I'm doing a small project with a semiconductor company here in Texas. It enables me to just jump up there quickly. But, I've, I did semiconductor for 12 years in HP, and,
Yep.
another 6 years after that, basically until semiconductor died in the United States. And, I can come in and talk process engineering with process engineers, product engineering with product engineers, equipment optimization, and we tried to bring domain experience to the customers, to help move their projects, get their projects back on track. And, a lot of it is, it's kind of a passion, is write better specifications.
Yeah, you got to flush the idea out better.
Well, it's not only that, but how many times have you seen an RFP that is, kind of at a 50,000 foot level, and, they come back and they wonder why they get bids for 50 grand and 500 grand. And it's like, it's like, you told me to build a house. You didn't tell me how big it was. You didn't tell me where you wanted to build it. You didn't tell me how you wanted to use it. And so, of course, you're going to get, I can build you a house in Timbuktu for 50 grand, or I can build you a house, in this nicer area for 1.5 million. It's, let's really get the specification down. It's like, and a lot of customers don't understand that on the more startup, small size. And so that's why we've kind of transitioned to just, we found it more successful working with larger customers that understand the value of pre-definition. It's, the software industry's moved to, an agile methodology, and, you wouldn't build your house on an agile methodology. So our internal process is kind of a waterfall start with agile execution. I love the iteration of agile, but I love the definition of waterfall.
Ooh, I like that. Waterfall start with agile. I'm quoting you on this, by the way. I'm taking notes.
No, it really is. It's, if you're going to build a house, do you just, bring a bunch of people in a room and say, okay, everybody grab a shovel and see what you do? No, you plan
Right.
it, you work with an architect, you get it, engineered. And then at that point, you can give it to anybody. And there are craftsmen within their specific trade, just like there are craftsmen within technology. But you can get a repeatable product because you specified this is the use of the room, and this is how big it is, and here's where the walls and windows and doors are. There's no surprises.
Yeah, it just sounds so logical. Like that's how it just should be. And then, because I'll be honest with you, I'm not in a situation where I'm reviewing RFPs. Like
Mm-hmm.
that's not something that I have a lot of experience with. My experience is building technologies and just building and deploying like large scale applications. And so for me, I've done both, to be honest with you. I've done the projects where we fully plan out, and I've done the projects where we just figure it out, like agile side and then the waterfall side. And then I'm finding myself, the reason why I was so excited about the way you said that is because that's where I found that I kind of sit in the middle of now. I plan stuff out, we figure it out, and then we execute it in an agile way and deal with any of the discrepancies in that way.
Yeah, it's otherwise, you're doing too much, what ifs, what's the true requirement. It's, if you can't, especially in the web world, if you can't give me a design and true requirements, I can't give you an accurate, realization of what that's going to take to build. It's, somebody comes and says, I have these 5 requirements, and it's like, that could be bigger than a bread box, smaller than a Tesla. I have no idea until, how many screens it is, what's the complexity of the screens, and what's the complexity of the underlying technology.
Yeah. So what advice would you give entry-level engineer that says, they've got maybe 2 or 3 years of experience, they're writing some code for a company, and they want to step up their career path? What advice would you give that individual?
Probably the best thing that ever happened to me in my life was my father had the greatest work ethic on the planet. And that is probably the largest gift that he ever gave me is, I had an opportunity to speak at Oregon State's engineering graduation. And, the whole topic or the advice that I gave to the graduating engineers is there's 3 types of people. There's a board in a field. There's one person that's going to see the board and step over it. There's one person that's going to see the board, tell somebody there's a board that needs to be picked up in the field. And then the third type of person sees the board, picks it up, and holds it until they get it to the person that needs to actually do something with it. And so it's be proactive. It's kind of a work ethic. It's there's a generational thing, and I don't think it's as much generational as it is kind of I grew up in Silicon Valley. If you left before 78 hours in a week, you'd get, what, are you sick? What, do you got a date? What's going on? And it's like really put the work in, and opportunities will come to you. And ask also 360 feedback type of things. It's one of the worst things that happened to me early in my career is my S didn't stink. And that doesn't mean no value. It's top performer, top performer, top performer. I finally had a boss that said, after the end of it, she's like, this is your official thing, but here's what here's where you can be better. And so find mentors that really challenge you and don't praise you, but support you and identify the gaps of where you could be better. So I'm not telling everybody, working, 60, 70 hours a week isn't for everybody, but the people that really commit to their craft early in their career are going to advance and have greater opportunities.
Yeah, I found that I like your mentor thing because it's like, find the mentors that are coaches instead of cheerleaders. Like they're going to tell you what to work on. And then, for me, I have my father, extraordinary work ethic as well. And he was an engineer and developed embedded systems, things like that. So my childhood is the smell of baked electronics and solder. So one of the things I learned from him was, getting up early. And then I also learned that, to him, he would be working and my mom would be like not super happy about it all the time, but it wasn't like he wasn't like he never complained about work. Like he so enjoyed and loved what he did. And he would just come home excited talking about whatever system he built or program he wrote. And, he would just work forever. And it's not, it sounds so cliche, but when you experience it, it's so not a bad thing. It's such a great thing because you're excited to do what you want to do. And then people see it from the outside and they call it work, but you're like, no, I'm just like living and doing what I want to do every day. People just happen to pay me for it.
Exactly. It's a kid in a candy store.
Yes.
It is cliche. And I was actually thinking of that before you said that is, find your passion and strive towards your passion. For me, I'm a philomath. I love learning. I loved when I was, traveling 900,000 miles a year. I could read 10 to 12 books a week. I could, always learn. And everybody's like, what would you do in retirement? It's like, I call it the lottery scenario. What would I do if I won the lottery? I would go back to school and get my PhD in quantum physics, just because it is an extremely interesting,
Jake's smiling right now because this is the conversation that we've had in the office and like with my wife and stuff. I'm like, yeah, if I won the lottery, I would probably just educate myself. Like, and yeah, that's so amazing that you said that.
I would love to learn, about, things that I only, am able to read about. And then cross-pollinate that, right? Do that with something in, how do you apply other domain, other areas of interest, and how do you learn other areas of interest so that you can do better at what you're doing? It's like, 1911, right? In 1911, the patent office was about to close because everything that was going to be invented had already been invented. And think about, what didn't exist in 1911. And so that's kind of a laughable thing, but, be open to innovation, be open to failure. And that's the really biggest thing in innovation is it's just as important to learn what doesn't work as what works.
Yeah.
Edison didn't didn't invent incandescent lights the first time. that's a famous story of 101 or it's the 1,000th experiment that actually worked. And if you listen, and if Edison won and Tesla hadn't come around, I don't know if you ever had the opportunity, but there's something on the History Channel called like American Genius. It's like
Yep, I've seen it. I know what you're talking about right now. Yeah, I've seen it.
That story of kind of Edison versus Tesla.
Yep.
Is one of the coolest things I've seen. Is it's basically direct current versus alternating current. And can you imagine what our cities would look like today if it was all direct current? We'd have power plants every 30 feet.
Yep, we've seen the same thing. Yeah, I love that one. It was so good. And then Tesla died poor at the end.
Oh yeah. Yeah. Well, and it's the interesting because it was Oppenheimer versus I think Heinrich was his name, the guy that won the Nobel Prize for splitting the atom. And the guy, it's funny that it's the guy that actually succeeds sometimes was the one that the true innovator. I'm looking right now in my office. I have Tesla's patent right on the wall. I have a few patents on the wall. It's even though they didn't succeed, they've changed. They fundamentally changed our life, and they in death they became a success. And so hopefully able to recognize some success before I'm kicking up daisies. But it's okay to as long as you try.
Yeah. Man, we're gonna, when I'm in Austin, I'm gonna stop by and see you. We're gonna geek out together because I consume that content. Like when I consume media, that's the media I do consume, is things of that nature. Not like Jersey Shore.
Yeah, well, it's there's a place and time for the mind-numbing stuff to quiet our brains, but definitely if you're doing something, if you're not, I tell people this all the time, and that's kind of the mentoring model is, if you're not learning, you're dying.
Yeah.
And let's not get busy dying. So let's get busy learning.
That's how I want to end it. That's I love that. That is so good. Marcus, thank you so much. If people want to find out, well, I know they do. When people want to find out more about you, where do you hang out? Twitter, LinkedIn?
LinkedIn, I have a thing, connect with me as long as you're not, trying to sell something. If I can help you in any way, connect with me on LinkedIn. I'm old. I don't do a lot of Twitter, because I can type 80 words a minute. So I get recent news there, but, definitely when you're in Austin, pick Tex-Mex or barbecue, and I'd love to geek out over, we have great of both.
Oh, nice. I'm a big quesadilla fan.
Okay. Well, we have very good Tex-Mex.
Awesome. Thank you so much. So the way that we wrap it up here is it was actually recording to your HTML5 local storage.
Okay.
So now it's just uploading the audio to the server. We have it now. It's all there. It's real fast internet connection. Plus they're small files too. So dude, that was amazing, Marcus. You're the best.
Well, I really enjoyed the time and the opportunity, and I really enjoyed learning more about you as I was doing the research for this. And I'm going to go out and get your book and learn more. And thanks for what you do.
Oh, awesome! Yeah, there's some special stories in there that aren't anywhere else online in the book.
Well, it's like I said, if we're not we're not learning, so I'd love to. We can learn from everybody.
Everything.
Exactly.
That's what the science shows, like you said, when you're learning over here and then you're taking that information over there, you can always learn. I can learn stuff in any situation.
Exactly.
Oh, all right. Talk to you soon, Marcus. Thank you so much.
All right, Joel. Thanks for the time.
All right. Thank you. Bye.
All right. Bye.